We are here live at the Global Alt Summit in Miami with Pete Muller of PDT Partners. And we are so excited to talk to you today about everything related to your incredible career as a prop trader, founder, and then also your really cool journey with music. And then finally with poker, which tells a kind of cool. Oh, and the New York Times. You have such a cool story. So anyway, I would love if you could start just talking about your backgrounds getting into finance.
It was kind of random, actually. I always loved math. I always loved music. I did both. I had no interest in finance. I took one finance course as an undergraduate and dropped it after one or two classes. And I remember my girlfriend in college got a job at the Wall Street Journal, and I made fun of her for working for a capitalist drag. So I was the least likely person to get into finance. I played music, and I knew how to program, so I was pretty good at programming. I got a job with a German computer firm called Mixdorf. I worked for them in the summer. They liked me a lot, and they said, come out to LA, and that worked out pretty well, and they offered me a full-time job in New York. And I could have taken that path, but I had the piano, and I was playing piano for a friend of mine who was trying out for the Olympic team in rhythmic gymnastics. And she said, come accompany me at the sports festival, which was the Olympic tryouts. And if she had come first, I would have been the Olympic pianist.
Wow.
She came fourth. But I met a gymnastics coach in California who had a team, and she took a liking to me and said, come play for my girls in California. And I said, I don't really want to live in New York City and program. Sure. So I went to California, started playing for her team, and realized it's very tough to make a living being a rehearsal pianist.
I'm sure.
So I looked for a job programming, and there was an opening at a financial consulting firm called Barra.
Is that where like Barra's betas comes from? When like there's investment bankers who are putting together their models and they need the beta for the DCF?
Exactly.
Got it.
So
That's
it's Barra
so cool.
Rosenberg. He was an econometrics professor at Berkeley. And he got a number of his colleagues to start this firm. And no one had those models back then.
Yeah.
So he basically said, I'm going to keep teaching. I'm going to start this firm.
Yeah.
If the clients want to talk to me, I will have office hours Tuesday from 3 to 4. The rest of the time, talk to somebody else. And it works. Right. And I still remember I actually got to interact with him for a while. He was a very, very cool, inspiring person. And I got a lot of my philosophy about how to run a firm from him because he treated everybody really, really well.
Yeah.
He was also a Zen Buddhist. He was on the cover of Institutional Investor, with the lotus position. Why does everybody want to talk to him?
Amazing.
And I'm like, sure, I'll try this. I interviewed and I was like, whoa. This is where I'm supposed to go.
Oh, really cool.
40 people, really cool, really smart. And I decided that I should learn about finance because it was all math. And so I did. And I jumped into it. And I also continued to play for the team for a while. I did both things. And then started a little jazz band on the side. And also got into poker. And back then, the philosophy of the firm was very much markets are efficient.
Yeah.
All these people that are trying to do active management, they're kind of dreaming and they're good at marketing, but they actually are not really beating the market because on average, they're not.
Yeah.
And I believe that. And then I started playing poker and I realized that you can have skill and you can make money consistently at poker. I did it with a few buddies. And then I did a consulting project for a fairly famous quant firm. It was Renaissance Technology. And so they were trading futures.
Yeah.
And they had all this cash sitting around and they were trying to figure out whether to put it in bills or bonds.
Yeah.
Because they knew about as much about finance as I did. They were all mathematicians. And they gave me the project to do. And I said, sure, I don't know anything about this, but I'll try to figure it out. And I wrote something up that I don't think was very good, but they liked it enough that they offered me a job. And I said, well, wait, you guys have a fund that just basically tries to make money all the time? Beat the market? You can't do that. Markets are efficient. Maybe not.
Yeah.
But I watched for a while and I realized, oh my God, they're still doing it. So when I got an offer from Morgan Stanley a number of years later, actually, they didn't want me to do prop trading. They wanted me to write quant articles and talk at conferences.
Really?
I was doing that. I learned a lot quickly.
Yeah.
And so I went and I said, sure, I'll go work for you, but I want to try prop fitting. I want to actually try using the models that we've built and the technology and trying to figure out how to make money.
Yeah.
And they said, have you ever done it? A very valid question.
You're like, listen, past results are not indicative of future performance.
And I told him, I'm pretty good at poker. I figured out poker. I'm playing pretty high limits and making money consistently. I think I can figure it out. And they said, you know what? Come here, do it for a couple of years. If you can't figure it out, we'll do the job. You'll do the job we want you to do. And I said, okay. Now, pretty determined. And I threw myself into it. Hooked up with some really smart, creative people. And after a couple of years, we figured it out. Started making really consistent money, and quant strategies scale.
Yeah.
And we did. And we were a very profitable part of Morgan Stanley.
Yeah.
I guess fast forward to 1998, 1999. I'm the highest paid guy at the bank.
Wow.
And I'm not happy. I'm not happy because I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. That was really fun. I was really driven. But I'm burned out.
Yeah.
I have a grand piano in my apartment. I'm barely touching it. My partner in the group, who's a woman named Kim Alcesser, comes to me at the end of the year and says, Pete, I've made enough money. I want to move to California. I want to get a degree in psychology. I want to have a kid. I want to get a dog. I want to live by the beach.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was so sad. My girlfriend broke up with me. So I lost, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I'm unhappy. Why am I doing this? And I realized I achieved my goal and I had its own balance. So I started writing songs about my breakup.
You did?
And that's where I found myself in. So I went to Morgan. I was working for a guy named Vikram Pandit. You know Vikram?
Well, he went on to be the CEO of Citi.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He was still at Morgan. And I still remember my negotiation with him. This funny story. I'll put it in a book one day, but you could. And I said, Vikram, I'm burned out. I need a sabbatical. First thing he says is, go to India. And he says, how long do you want to go for? And I said, I think I need 6 months. And he said, Pete, how's about 3 months? And I said, Vikram, 7 months. He's like, I'm dead. And at that night, we were making enough money that I had all the leverage in the world.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I realized I didn't want to go to the office every day. So I set a path to leave. I basically cut a deal with the bank. I said, we had a bonus pool that I'd carved out. I said, give that entire bonus pool to the group. Give me a new one, 5%. Next year, make it 4, 3, 2, 1. The next 5 years, I'll just make sure it stays.
Yeah.
And they'll get the rest of it.
Yeah.
So everybody in my group loved me.
Yeah.
Vikram was like, sure, whatever I just keep it running. And I dove into music. I dove into making music. I applied to Tisch to get a master's in musical theater because I wanted to go to Berkeley, but I couldn't. But anyway, the Berkeley story connects later. Anyway, I go to Tisch. It's 6 weeks before 9/11, and I'm living downtown.
Oh my God.
9/11 happens. I learn a lot in the 6 weeks. I learn about constructive criticism. I also, after 9/11, think, I don't want to live in New York anymore. I'm done.
Fair.
I drop out, but I start a song circle. And so I start meeting weekly with people I'm still making sure PDT runs. We're doing okay. And writing a lot of songs. I do a couple albums. I'm performing. I'm really getting into it. And PDT is doing fine, but we're not growing. We're not hiring new people.
Yep.
It's kind of like, well, we got this stuff figured out. Let's just keep on milking it.
Yeah.
And it starts stagnating. And eventually it gets to this point where another person leaves that's important. And I'm looking at it and thinking, oh, they're not going to survive. They're not going to thrive.
Yeah.
At the same time, I've met a woman that became my wife. And she's like, you're getting a little intense about online poker. I think you miss the stimulation. Maybe you should go back and just see if you can help out. I'm like, great. Long story, but I go to help out. Pretty soon I'm running it again. Even though I've moved to California.
Oh.
I basically said to them, I said, I can run this from California. I can come back a week a month, 6 weeks in the summer. Or I can move to California and you can have it. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that I have a lot of trust with that we've worked together for a long time and they like me running it. Yeah. So all of a sudden I'm running it.
Yeah.
Right before the quant crisis, 2007. That's a different story. All I can tell you is front page of the Wall Street Journal. Only time I've had my name in dots above the fold. Quant star battered. No time for music now.
Oh,
that's the headline. It's great. But the whole point was nobody knew we existed.
Yes.
And there was this 1 week in the markets that was just nuts.
Yeah.
There was one firm that was over leveraged, but quant had worked so well, all different kinds of quant, not so good quant, great quant. Everybody just put more and more money in it. And some people got really greedy and crazy leveraged. And some things started to happen related to the creaks that were happening in the financial system a year later. And people started liquidating. And in this 1 week, relative valuations went crazy. The market didn't move. So if you weren't a quant, if you didn't understand relative value, you didn't notice. But a number of funds blew up. And we lost our entire year. we were making very, very consistent money. And all of a sudden we lost our entire year in a week.
Oh my God.
Crazy, scary time. And all of a sudden I'm full on back hitting.
Yeah.
We managed to recover. We ended up the year fine. And, but then in 2008, Morgan Stanley almost went bust. That weekend was the weekend my first son was born. We are at Morgan Stanley trying to figure out what's happening. Now, I've negotiated this great deal where we actually get to invest in our strategies through an unsecured obligation of Morgan Stanley to just give us the returns of our strategies. Because I really wanted to invest in.
Yeah.
If Morgan Stanley goes bust, everything we've earned is zero.
Yeah.
So that's the weekend when John Matt went to Japan and saved the firm.
Yeah.
Right. Meanwhile, my people are like, okay, let's save our code somehow in case we need it. What are you doing? It was nuts. I'm calling in, checking in because I'm in Santa Barbara where my son is born, calling in, do I have to go back to New York? Fortunately, I didn't.
Oh, no.
Everything was fine. But that set the pattern, and then eventually the Volcker rule happened and said that banks couldn't do prop trading.
Yeah.
So banks can't do prop trading. We're going to have to spin you out.
Yeah.
Talk about the most painful negotiation I've ever had in my life. That's a whole different story. But eventually, John Matt was replaced. James Gorman came in.
Yeah.
The best, easiest negotiation I've ever had in my life with James Gorman. Gorman came in and said, what do you want? I know you've been screwed around with a little bit. It's okay. Morgan Stanley was very good to me. What do you want? I said, not much. We want to own our strategies. We've built them. It's all ours. We want to be able to invest in them, and we want to be able to take outside money.
Yeah.
He goes, okay, here's the thing. You can take outside money. It's great. Yeah, you can invest in your strategies. Great. You don't own it. We own it. But I'll make you a deal. If we ever get to the point where we can't fund you, we can't give you the capital you want, you own the strategies.
Interesting.
And I'm like, wow, that's really smart. That's exactly what I do in your position. Okay, handshake, we had a deal. Then Volcker happens, and all of a sudden they can't own our strategies.
So it's yours.
So we had a negotiation to spin the group out, which was great, incredibly amicable.
Yeah.
We had 80 people at the time. Every single one came with us.
Yeah.
Every single one had a non-compete with Morgan Stanley, signed a non-compete with us. We found our own office space. We could take our track record. It was so smooth. In fact, we even transferred the positions from Morgan to our clients on December 31st, 2011. So we didn't even have to sell and bring them back then.
That's amazing.
So, and that was when we spun out in 2012. And so there'll be a book about this one day. I read it. It's kind of
cool. Yeah, this needs to be a movie.
So in the meantime, when I went back, I realized I didn't want to burn out again. So I'm playing out once a month in the village. There's a place called Cafe Vivaldi. I'm playing with my band. I'm bringing friends in. It's really fun. It's kind of cool. And, had a couple kids. And then you get to 2014 or 15, and I'm like, I want to get even more serious about music. The group's going well, and it is. We have 265 people now, which is great. And almost all of it's our money.
Yeah.
And this was my fundraising pitch when we started. I went to a large institutional investor that knew about us. And I said, we want you guys to invest $500 million. Our fees are higher than anybody else out there. And we want you to lock up for 7 years.
Our listeners who might not be familiar, that is very long. That's basically like private equity territory, not hedge fund territory.
And so natural question is, well, what are you going to give us for that?
Right.
But they knew about our track record and how well we did. And I said, we will promise not to give your money back for 7 years. Because eventually we're going to take over the fund if it keeps going. And so we won't give it back to SUI. And they said, okay.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, none of my partners thought this was a good idea, but it worked. And other clients that wanted to invest said, we want a 7-year lockup too. And we said, no, because we're going to give your money back. And sure enough, it was exactly at 7 years that we took over the whole fund ourselves.
That's amazing. That's like what Rentec did too. It's the same thing. It was like nobody else, everyone is gone.
Exactly. And then we've created some other funds where we're sharing with them. And eventually we're going to take those over too.
That's so cool.
And so fortunately they did it first. So I said, if we do this right, we're going to be similar to them. So that helped us. Yeah.
So tell us about the actual products that were the bread and butter of your strategy.
So what we do is in the broad category of statistical arbitrage. We look at whatever data we can, and we use that data to forecast over time intervals everywhere from a minute from now to a year from now. And we build those statistical models very, very carefully because it's very easy to overfit data. So there's processes for figuring out how to do that and testing them. And then we figure out very carefully how we trade in the market and how our trades affect the market. And then we come up with strategies that optimize the dollars we make with the smallest amount of risk. One other thing we have, I think that's the most important thing about our firm, is we have all these smart people, but the trick is getting them to work together and collaborate and cooperate and creating an environment of trust. If you don't have that, you can't get anything done. And that's where a lot of firms fall down. How do you create a culture where people are incented to collaborate and to cooperate? How do you hire people that are good at that? And I've had some incredible partners, including Tushar Shah, who's been our head of research, who's put together just an amazing research lab, right? And when I came back to the firm, when I felt we were stagnating, I kind of saw his desire. I mean, he should be running a research lab somewhere. He is. And he's been a great partner to me in building the business.
So I'm curious, what did you study in college? Was it computer science? And then also, I know with Rentech, it's all these people that are like super geniuses that don't know anything about the markets. Do you feel like you guys bring more market knowledge into it? Or is it still, we're just doing the statistics and it's all driven off of the math?
I studied math, but pure math.
Okay.
Like any application to me was anathema. It was pure theoretical math. It's the most beautiful thing in the world.
Yeah.
That's what I loved.
Yes.
And when I got into poker, I started understanding markets a little bit. But by and large, the makeup of our firm is our theoretical physicists, mathematicians, computer scientists, all that. It's a research lab.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically super geniuses.
I don't know what that means, but sure.
Music is such a huge part of your life. And it does seem that there tends to be a high correlation with musicians and people who are very good at math. And so I'm curious, do you think there is sort of an intersection there? And why do you love music so much?
Okay, so the music-math correlation. I would disagree with you. I don't think there's a correlation. I think there are people that are great at music and great at math that love both. I think there are people that can't do either. I think there are musicians that stink at math. And I think there are mathematicians that can't play a note or hear a note. So there's a certain type of person that sees the patterns in music and math. And I'm one of those.
Right.
But I don't know that there's a positive correlation.
Interesting. Again, that totally makes sense. But it's probably like the bias where it's like you see it a few places, so you think that it over-indexes when it's actually not. If you were to look at I read something somewhere that like if you don't study musical theory at a certain age, there are actually brain pathways that are closed off to you. And why it's like so difficult for adults to learn musical instruments if they've never had any training in it.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I disagree with that. So I think neuroplasticity. I mean, it's been studied whether or not you can actually your brain can. I think if you have the desire and you have the focus, you can do it when you're 75.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think it's just time and effort. And as you get older, you're more set in your ways. You're not actually spending the time that you do when you're younger.
Fair.
So I'm
that is true. The frustration level with age grows when trying new things. It's funny because I saw my younger brother who started, I think, in like second grade playing the trumpet, and by sophomore year was like national orchestra. And I decided I wanted to do that in ninth grade, and I had to work my ass off. But I became very good at the flute, like I wanted to play, because I was really, really, really gung ho, and it was just very important to me. So I do think, to your point, if you're willing to put in the time and the effort, you can get there. But you've lost some of the like compounding from the early years that you haven't like put that time in.
But you can make up for it. You can actually grow. I mean, and through my own experience.
Yeah.
When I started performing my first couple albums, people were like, man, I love your piano playing. Now it's just like, oh, I love your singing. And, first, if I look back at the lyrics in the first few songs, okay, not bad, but you just put the work in, you keep getting better. And that's what I really started doing after we spun out, after I had a couple kids, firm is stable. And then I started touring around. My wife said to me, you're getting really serious about this music. You want to see if you're any good, you should play in front of strangers.
Oh.
And I think she regrets saying that because I decided to do that. So the question is, why do I do it? I mean, when we open up for somebody, we're playing in a small 250-seat venue, wonderful crowd, can drop quiet, but we're the opening act usually. I mean, unless I'm playing in New York or Santa Barbara, we're opening for somebody else because we can't draw those people in those cities at the moment. One day, maybe. You never know.
Yes.
So I'm going in, I'm playing in front of strangers, like my wife said. And I need in 35, 40 minutes to get them to go, wow, I love this, to connect with them, to get them to feel. Love that challenge. It's amazing. I don't get that opportunity at work. I walk into the office and they're like, oh, wow, he started the firm. I want people to tell me that I'm full of crap. right?
So interesting.
So being able to humble yourself in something new, it's such a drive. Being able to get in touch with your emotions, openly express them, and inspire people. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. But the thing that I realized, and the reason I went back, is if I were only doing that, it wouldn't be fun either.
Yeah. Wait, and so what age were you? I'm actually curious when you started to play.
Oh, I learned piano at 10.
At 10?
Yeah.
So, wait. So, yeah, I mean, your personal experience give the lie to the myths that we believe about neuroplasticity. Because, like, we hear all the time, you haven't started your kid at 3 musical instruments. By the time they're 3, it's all over.
But I actually, I didn't start writing songs until much later.
Until how old?
30-something, 35. I mean, I mean, I maybe written 1 or 2 songs. And now I'm working on my 7th album. It's going to come out this year. So, yeah.
What is the actual genre of music and where do you play and all that kind of fun stuff?
Former band member described it the best way that I know. Americana with a rock soul vibe. So it's singer-songwriter, lyric-based stuff, kind of reminiscent of Paul Simon or Jackson Brown or Harry Chapin.
Yes.
You know, the singer-songwriters of the 70s, Springsteen, Billy Joel, that sort of thing.
Not Kristen's genre. No, but he is a god to my father-in-law. But yeah.
What is your genre?
Rap, pop, you know, just...
Are you same thing for you?
I'm more classic rock, so that speaks to me. So
good.
Paul Simon, Jackson Brown.
I'll be talking to you.
Like, I'm trying this way. No, you're fine. Our good friend Guy Adami, who's floating around here somewhere, has a playlist of 1,000 songs on it. And Kristen's like, I haven't heard a single one of these. And I was like, these are literally all of my favorite songs. I have another question for you. So, talking about poker, one of the things that I found over the years, a lot of the different risk takers that I knew on Wall Street, there was a lot of them were either had some experience as professional poker players, or there was a lot of poker playing that kind of happened as a way to hone skills or think through different analytical problems, things like that. What is the relationship between poker and risk taking, in your opinion? One thing that we've been finding is actually there's an increased focus on building poker skills in women, which isn't traditionally cultivated, as a way to get them comfortable thinking about financial risk taking and stuff like that. Do you think that people should practice with poker? Is that a good place to start? What would you recommend? And what are your thoughts on that?
I think poker is a great way to understand risk. The biggest part of it for me, and I think for most people, is learning how to manage your emotions. So if you're doing well and you're on a great run, all of a sudden you get overconfident and you start making silly bets and taking too much risk. Conversely, if things are going badly, right, you start getting pessimistic and making unwise choices and not realizing that, okay, this is an emotional thing. So learning to have a Zen approach, to be calm in the moment, to be present, that's so important. And the only way to learn that, everyone that plays, even professionals, are going to go on tilt. You've heard that expression, going on tilt?
No, I haven't.
When you're playing poker and you're off your game, that's called going on tilt.
Okay.
You're making bad decisions. The best thing to do is to walk away from the table and stop playing. If you're at a tournament, you can't do that. You have to modify it a little bit. But it's understanding your emotional state. And then also, because you're aware of that, being able to understand other people's emotional states.
Got it. It's so interesting to me, too, because when you have a trading strategy that is so quantitatively based, I think of that as being less emotional than some other trading strategies that might be more like, oh, I really have this high conviction because I did this deep analysis on this one stock and I'm just going to go long, short, or whatever here, right? Is that true? Do you still get emotional the same way about your portfolio, the way that maybe a more fundamental analysis?
No, I mean, one of the advantages of a systematic approach, a quantitative approach that we take and a number of other firms take, is that the model's trading. The only decision you get to make is, do I trust the model or do I not trust the model? Do I modify the model? What do I do? But you don't make individual decisions. So if you're losing a ton of money or you're making a ton of money, if you feel emotional about it, you're not going to change what you do. You still feel emotional, by the way, even after 33 years. It's like, yes, sir. Come on.
Yeah.
And you actually still get overconfident. Oh, my God, we really figured it out. This is fantastic. Oh, maybe it's all going to stop working. You know, those things happen in your brain, but you don't act on them. And you don't have to worry about acting on them. And that's a huge advantage that a quantitative approach has.
Do you guys incorporate AI or
AI is a buzzword.
Yeah.
And what most people mean when they talk about AI are large language models. You've heard that expression. Most quants have been using those types of models for quite some time.
Got it.
Right? So AI is just a broad generalization of, how can you use machines to figure out patterns?
And you're like, we've been doing that. That's boring, already done.
It's not boring. It's incredibly interesting and fascinating.
But not
and the way, the amount of stuff that the machines can figure out automatically has increased dramatically. And
Right.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild, but it is the same
Okay.
type of thing.
2 questions. 1, who's the biggest person that you guys have opened for? And number 2, we've talked with 2 other people who are like the best athlete of all time, or, people who are just at the absolute peak. I feel like a lot of them, they get there and then they feel like they need to do something else. So if it's athleticism, then they want to do business. Or in your case, you were at the absolute peak on the investing side. And then it's like, I want to go do music. Do you think that that's like a huge part of what initially brought you to music in the first place, was feeling like you had basically achieved the thing, but it's like you wanted something else to be challenged by?
Now, the thing that got me was my heart got ripped open through a heartbreak. And then, like, I was with someone and didn't appreciate her enough. And instead of saying, okay, I'm going to move on, I couldn't, I let things get bad. And then I had to write about it. I mean, so my heart was really ripped open. And that vulnerable place, I remember being so not myself, so just, oh my gosh. And I remember somebody saying to me, treasure this time, you'll remember it. And it's really true, because most people that are in finance are so,
podcast. This is so,
and they're so controlled. They so know it.
yes. Yeah.
You can actually also be in touch with what's really going on, because that's real power.
Yeah.
And so it just opened me up. And I'm like, okay, I'm never going to ignore my emotions again.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to try not very hard.
Yeah.
And so when I have those strong emotions, that leads to a song. It makes for great songwriting.
Yes.
It means that, probably a larger percentage of my songs are sadder and melancholy, because when I'm happy, I don't want to write them.
Yeah.
But I have some happy
It's like Taylor Swift.
Exactly.
About heartbreak and breakups, like the number of songs that are like, we got together and it was great. Not gonna lie, I will say I'm also much more a fan of minor. Anything minor is my piece. Yes.
I've
I
got
don't
a
like
lot of
major.
minor songs. You got to check them out.
I would yeah. I hear you also write crossword puzzling. Is that true? You also like do writing for the New York Times?
I have a monthly puzzle in the Washington Post. I have more than a dozen crosswords that I published in the New York Times. And,
Wow.
And I know Will Short's, and there's some Will Short stories I can tell you.
Yeah.
I eventually realized that, even though they love my crosswords, a lot of people submit, maybe they'll accept 1 in 3. So I decided to do my own contest. I started that 12, 13 years ago. So it was a monthly contest. So then the Washington Post started publishing it, I think 4 years ago. So it's a monthly music meta. I have my own subscribers and then people that come over. And then whatever the answer is to the puzzle at the end of the month, the band records that song.
Oh, cool.
So we've gotten to do some really interesting songs. And yeah.
You had like the most fascinating life. It's just, your story is incredible. One final question, I guess. So many of our young listeners are very enamored of the idea of being a quant. Like, I want to be a quant. Do I go to an investment bank? Where do I go? How do I be a quant? What are the quant opportunities? What do I need to know to be a quant?
Yeah.
What, if you had any piece of advice to give them? Not so much life lessons, which I think you've shared more so than I think the average bear on our podcast in terms of like
Yes.
emotional development and holistic thinking about your life, but in terms of practical steps for young people wanting to get into the industry and build their career as a quant, what would you recommend?
Well, the first thing I'd say is I would ask them, why do you want to be a quant? What's the appeal? Is that, do you really love math and modeling and computer science? I mean, like, if that's what you love and you love investing and kind of trying to figure things out as a puzzle, okay, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But if you're like, oh man, the quants are doing really well, that's like the wrong reason.
Yeah.
But, studying computer science,
Yes.
studying, these days, machine learning, that's really important. Learning how to play poker, understanding markets and trying to figure out where your edge is. I think I would do that. And then there are a number of places where you can get internships. Getting something at a firm like ours is really hard.
I bet.
Typically take the top PhDs, but the quality you want is someone that's really, really driven and wants to figure it out and is smart. If I look at my path, there's a lot of luck that happened. I stumbled upon Bara, I stumbled upon, some quant firms. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I ran into some great people, but I've always had this drive.
Yeah.
I love to win and I love to connect. And those are the two parts of me, mastery and connection.
Yeah.
And if you have that, then you can figure it out. If you don't have that drive, it's probably the wrong thing for you. And you were going to tell them where to find music.
Yes.
If PeteMuller.com, it's easy. Instagram, Pete Muller Music. It's not
We will
hard.
share all the
definitely
links in
links
this
in the
episode
show
notes
notes
cool,
so that
yeah.
everyone knows where
I
to
do.
download
I do have a
that.
monthly newsletter that I write
Wow.
with. Do you remember Saturday Night Live? Jack Hanley, Deep Thoughts. And I have a Deep Thoughts section in my newsletter.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So
Thank you so much.
this is
was
fun.
So much. This is so much fun.
I mean, like anytime you can talk to people that are just lighting up and smiling the whole time.
It's
that-
amazing.
we can keep going. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Pete.
Pleasure.
Pleasure meeting you.
Cool.
Such a
Jen,
pleasure.
Kristen.
Thank you.
Oh, great.
We are about to play one of the songs by Pete Muller and the Kindred Souls. It's called Best of Her. And as you're going to hear Pete say, he actually wrote it about his wife. But if you want to learn more about the band, follow them, listen to their music, you can find them on PeteMuller.com. Pete Muller Music on Instagram. And we're going to share a bunch of links in the podcast notes so you can follow the band, listen to all their music, learn more about Pete, and enjoy.
So when you have a bunch of songs out there, you get to figure out what people are listening to on Spotify. It's kind of worse than Facebook or Instagram because I can log on to my artist page and go, how many people are listening right now? Oh my God, 28 people are listening to my song around the world. That's really cool. Oh, it's only 7 right now. Okay. I'll check back again. And you get to see what songs are resonating with people that naturally evolve. And this song is actually done remarkably well. And initially, I didn't play it because I wrote it about my wife. And I thought she wouldn't want me to play it. And it turned out I was exactly wrong because she really likes the song. It was inspired by her. It's about a beautiful, smart, somewhat cynical woman. And it's called Best of Her. Are we ready? She used to go to church, and then she saw the light. IQ off the charts, man, that girl was smart. She aced everything she tried. But that small town in Georgia, it never felt like home. Mama was depressed, Daddy just a guest. They mostly left her alone. Yeah, she gave up on Jesus, ain't nobody's fool. Sees right through the jokers, posers, and the tools. It's time to move on. She's gone just like a blur, 'cause no one ever gets the best of her. She built a bunker around her heart and made her way to the street. Oh, she had some style, a cynic with a smile. No one could compete. All that savvy, all that charm, man, there was nothing she couldn't sell. Flying all around the world, nothing stopped our girl. She used the users oh so well. Yeah, she gave up on Jesus, ain't nobody's fool. Sees right through the jokers, posers, and the tools. It's time to move on. She's gone just like a blur, 'cause no one ever gets the best of her. I tell you, no one ever gets the best of her. And you better never, ever get in her way. 'Cause if you do, there's hell to pay. And when she says, I love you, oh, you just wanna believe. But if she's afraid to trust, even love will turn to rust eventually. Yeah, she gave up on Jesus, ain't nobody's fool. Sees right through the jokers, posers, and the tools. It's time to move on. She's gone just like a blur, 'cause no one ever gets the best of her. I tell you, no one ever gets the best of her. All they wanted was the best, the best of her. Scotty, play that riff at the beginning of the song, just you. Isn't that so cool?